we're not really for sure if what they have is real or not. I know that's true for some of y'all, and I'm not going to call any names. Somebody got a big boom box going on. Because one of the things that we have learned to do, that in the midst of our fear, is to act like we ain't afraid. And I had a moment on Thursday after I was going through, and the doctor was telling me your white count's not good. You got to be real careful because you're real vulnerable to diseases and viruses and stuff that's out there. You probably need to remove yourself, and just kind of play it safe so that we can kind of get you back on track. And as they were saying that, I was having to sit there and wait for a moment. I found myself at one brief moment in it, and while I was sitting there at the chair, something that doesn't happen very often for me, Gail, but a few tears fell. And the tears that fell were because I was disappointed, Pam, in myself. Because I realized one thing, I realized I wasn't going to tell a lot of folk what was going on with me. That I realized that in the last few months, I have adopted a phrase that I've used, and I kind of use the phrase, is not the truth, and it's not a lie. It's kind of somewhere in between it, but the reality is that it's not right. That when people ask me how I am doing, I just simply say, I'm hanging in there. Because I can't say, I'm scared. I'm afraid. Because nobody wants to deal with folk who are afraid. And particularly folks don't want to deal with folk who are fearful when they themselves are living in fear. As they were in that room, I don't believe that there was a whole lot of talking going on, Pam. I believe they were just looking at one another, trying to figure out where is some solution going to come from. They didn't want to say anything because as soon as you open your mouth, then you become the one who's in charge of stuff. They just sat there and looked at themselves. And maybe it was Judas Iscariot, who was one of them, who tried to lighten things up and said, boy, it sure would be great if Jesus was here and changed this water into wine because we ain't got nothing to drink. But I believe they just sat there. They sat there in their fear. And while I can't prove that was what was going on, you can't prove I'm wrong. But I'm convinced it's what's happening because when Jesus shows up, and this once again proves I'm not Jesus. Because when I busted through the door, I've been calling them out. But Jesus goes through the door, and the first thing he speaks to them is peace. Don't do it now because I want you to listen to the rest of the sermon. But when you go home this evening, ask yourself, when was the last time somebody came and spoke peace to you? Jesus spoke peace. And so for the rest of the time that they were there, and as he was assuring them, and as he was allowing them to go through parts of the story, I don't know what it was and how late he stayed or how long he was there. But it changed their whole perspective. And we understand that because when Thomas finally comes and they tell Thomas what had happened, Thomas is deeply upset that he has missed this encounter. And it says that I'm not going to believe it until I for myself see the nail prints when I'm able to touch it for myself. I'm not going to believe it until I have what you had. As if somehow things would be different. We say that Thomas was a doubter. I don't think Thomas doubted that Jesus was alive. I don't think he doubted his brothers and sisters that would have been there, that somehow what he was doing, that they were lying to him. In fact, the word really doesn't translate into doubt as much as it transfers into belief. I'm not going to believe until I had what you had. And before we become critical of Thomas, many of us go through life that way. We want what somebody else has. And somehow, if what they have, if we had it, we would be happy too. And we have become such copycats. I mean, churches are doing the same thing. Preachers go, I remember a few years ago, the going thing, everybody wanted to grow their churches and have thousands of people coming in, had 200-member choirs and all that stuff. And we believe in order to make that transition, all we had to do at some point in our sermon was say, get ready, get ready, get ready. Because that was what T.D. Jakes was doing. I can't tell you, a few weeks ago, Marvin Sapp told him at his church to lock the doors until I got $40,000. Well, I done heard so many preachers since he did that say that. I even heard one preacher say that at the 7 last words. All right, we're going to lock the doors until we get. Because we become copycats. But I want to change the end of the story just for a little bit for you. Yes, Thomas has said, unless I do these things. But there is no indication that once Thomas was there and Jesus came back and Jesus once again spoke peace to them, there's nowhere in the story that said that Thomas touched him in order for him to believe. That I think it became enough for Thomas to be in the presence and to realize that when Jesus comes to us in the ways that we need Jesus. That while I am sitting and wanting things to happen the way somebody else happened, that might not be the way that I need things to happen in my life. And Jesus affirms that stance for me when he says that, Thomas, okay, yes, you've had this opportunity. Most folk are not going to have this opportunity. But blessed are those who will believe when it comes to them in the way that they need it to come to them. Crystal got a 6-year-old boy. And much of what she's looking for and much of the help that she needs from Jesus in this time is radically different from what I need. Lord knows I don't need no, I'm thankful I got a 5-year, almost 6-year-old grandson. But Lord knows I don't need no 5 or 6-year-old child. Maybe 14, because then they can help change my diapers. But I don't need to have nobody that I need to change their diapers. But God comes to us. And God brings us and delivers us in the ways that we need to know that, yes, he has risen. But in coming to us individually and providing us what it needs, what Jesus still wants from us is for us to be in community with one another so that we can share the stories, so that when we are and find ourselves a little discouraged and wondering if maybe we missed out, that we can be reminded that we're in a community that's praying for us, that's lifting us up, that it's keeping us together until those moments come where we receive what it is that we need to receive, so that we can proclaim that, yes, he has risen. He has risen indeed. And so as we go through and as we continue to go through this Easter season, I want you to stop looking at what other people have. One thing I can say about Jesus is Jesus specializes. That he gives us what we need in the moment. And that in the moment where Herb's trying to deal with his mother and his uncle, the strength he needs is a totally different strength than Pam needs of trying to figure out, after she had all this replacement, how she can stand up and dance at the Will Downing show and jump up and down and shout. It becomes different needs for us in this moment. But I come today to tell you, stop wanting what somebody else wants and trust that Jesus will provide you with what you need. You just need to be willing to tell somebody else so that they can hold on till their blessings come. Amen.